Almost live. Yeah, we're live.
Hey,
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 hey, aloha, love tribe. What's up?
hey, hey.
Welcome to the Bitcoin Piece of Music podcast. And I have somebody here who we've been going back and forth a little bit because I'm really interested in how we can capture the heat from mining Bitcoin miners and turn it into heat for our homes. And Jon Hashner, the founder of Hashing to Heating, woohoo, is going to help us learn how to do that and do what Satoshi's original some of his vision was. So, hi, Jon. Welcome to Bitcoin Piece of
Val.
Music.
Thank you so much for having me here. Yeah, just great. I've been listening to so many of your spaces and so many of your podcasts with all the varied guests, and you cover all the spectrum. So it's wonderful to talk to you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for taking time to be here with us. And it's great. Obviously, it's September. You said it's really hot where you're at, and you're not able to turn the heat from the miners into air conditioning. That could be another thing we could talk about another time. But winter's obviously coming up here, and let's tell the audience, like, how did you get involved with turning the heat from miners into something from something like to something that we can utilize for our homes, and give us a little background about yourself.
I'll try to make it brief as I can. Anybody wants to check out anything about me, they can certainly go onto the webpage, and there's a lot of links and a lot of little background and stuff that'll tell you a little bit about my LinkedIn and stuff. But
So hashing to heating. So for those of you listening, it's hashing the number 2 heating.com.
Yeah. So a little bit about me. I'm kind of a kid who grew up as an environmental science person that didn't know what that was. At the beach telling people, like, don't pick on the crabs, and why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Pick up your trash. This was like 1974, right? So then fast forward, it's time to go to university, and what do you want to go to school for? Well, they have environmental studies, environmental science. That's kind of what is that? This is 1987, so I enroll, I go to school for environmental science. I do a lot of different things out of school with different industries, different water treatments, kind of everything, in the way of like, well, I'm helping, quote unquote, the environment in whatever way at whatever phase, so lots of different industries, lots of different experiences, some having to do with heat transfer, some having to do with industrial waters, a lot of kind of different areas basically that led me to this. And then I moved to California, and I got into what people would call at that time green building. So there was green building materials, the green building push, the energy lead for homes, energy upgrade California projects, things where that you had to do some testing of the buildings and they call it test in, test out. So you run around, you do a baseline study of what energy is consumed, what the leakage is, what the situation of the building is.
Mm-hmm.
And you recommend upgrades. Some of those are tax credits, some of those are different programs. So I worked in that kind of industry for a while, and solar, and just everything you can think of that's involved with green building. And coming to the idea of like, well, heating, HVAC, energy, heating of water, heating of anything that uses electricity exists. And then coming upon Bitcoin, I guess I'll weave in like a little Bitcoin. I live in Southern California area where Hal Finney actually lived during the Bitcoin development days, which is really fascinating to me.
Neat.
So right in the same town, right? So like all this stuff was happening during that, the Occupy movement and the right after the Wall Street crash and all these things of that era. And I learned about it, but I didn't get in because I didn't really grasp what this was. Friend says, you can put this thing on your thumb drive on your computer, I'm like, oh my God, they're going to steal my, what is it? What, you didn't understand and moved on at the time. And then later on you hear what it is. And then, okay, I'm interested in Bitcoin because I'm very interested in the history of money and hard money and what happened in our lifetime of, 71 on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like where my interest came into Bitcoin. And then someone said, well, all the energy. Oh my God, the energy. I said, well, again, you got to slow it down, find out what the reality is, find out your own hands-on experience with something. Let me get one of these miner things. What is this Bitcoin? I tried cloud mining, this, all the different rabbit holes, the mistakes you make when you're early on into it, my friends, oh, just try this cloud mining, and at that time, there were legitimate cloud mining contracts. But then within a year or two, things happen in the Bitcoin space very crazy, and you got to watch out, as we all know. But learn about Bitcoin. Okay, I just want to go straight to the source, get a miner, plug it in. Wow, this thing really cooks. 1400 watts. Well, my house is only electrically heated. I have a 1400 watt heater in the living room and a 900 watt heater in the kitchen. Well, it's the same thing, watts to watts. Well, then my mind, as a science mind, just starts going, well, this just makes perfect sense. Why aren't we doing this? Well, this, that, the new technologies. And, because the speed of everything in this industry is so crazy, from laptop to ASIC development to now ASICs have fans to now, to try to keep up with that development is almost tricky because you're trying to buy something that's already outdated that you're trying, so like that part gets a little confusing. And that's where I sort of stepped in to say, like, well, what can I do? What can I offer? What do I know about that I can integrate these ASIC chips into these ASIC boards, in case no one's ever actually held one, whatever. This is what we always talk about in this world. Okay, so power comes in, right? Power comes in via this thing that goes back to the control board. We won't get too complicated, but this is where the heat comes from. Chips are on the inside here, and they're doing all the, I'm doing it the wrong way in the camera. Okay, so let's just say these, and on the opposite side, there's the heat sink, which is this metal. All that hashing is going on in here, and it generates a lot of heat with all those guesses, and all that heat has to go somewhere, and now it goes out into these aluminum fins. And now what do we do with it?
Right.
Push it out into the air? Do we put this in some sort of liquid and circulate the liquid around into something like a radiant floor, like a radiator, like anything else that already exists? Like, to me, a lot of everything that comes with home performance and anything in this sustainability, if you want to use that word, industry, or low time preference industry, where we want to see the year 2025, 23, 35, when Bitcoin has solved the problems. We want to get there. So right now in our world, we have to figure out what to do with certain things. Well, we have heat from this miner. Let's put it into liquid. Let's put it into maybe the air. Let's put it into water, leapfrog up to that vision, which is here already right now. So I don't want to jump around too much, because the first question was, how did I get to this? So that's how I got to it. Was, okay, I bought one of these devices. I use electricity for heating. You can go way down different rabbit holes. And this is why I like my profession. Like, I kind of like myself in this role, because someone will say, well, what about heat pumps? Yes, that is true. So everything is kind of like heat pumps are more efficient when they use the way they use electricity. They can run cooling and heating. They cost a lot more. They also have maintenance. They cost a lot more upfront. They might not fit in a small apartments, So it's like case by case. Yes, there are certain places where if you went down a checklist, hashing the heating might not work, might not be the best. But if you're way over here on this side of the checklist, and you're maybe producing your own energy, and you have excess that you sell back to the grid, and you have already electric baseboard heating, and you already have electric water, well, sure, then it's a natural. So there's all these variables and scales and spectrums, let's use it, that you could kind of go through with a sanity checklist and be like, no, well, I wouldn't recommend you investing in that. But if you're just about to design a brand new home, and you're just about to work with your architect, and you're just about to do something, yes, you should be looking at this technology. If you already, so it's like, hey, call me up. We'll go through this. Hey, we'll figure it out for you. There's no black blanket answer. There's no magic, simple, like it solves everything. Yeah.
Dude, like my brain just, I do consulting, and I love thinking of, how to remix things, of course, that are already there. I'm a DJ, of course. But what you just said to me was so there's this little epiphany about, okay, certainly we can go retrofit things, right? We can go retrofit the Olympic swimming pool and go do this and heat our pool or go heat the existing house. But like any new construction at all in the world should incorporate this in their design. In my, like, why wouldn't they incorporate that as part of their, operating system and ecosystem?
Well, I mean, this is, as a building scientist, as a, realist or whatever, I believe in not always being 100% on the hopium or 100% on like,
sure,
it solves everything. It's sort of like you can just, I respect people that, can say, well, it's good for this or it isn't good for that, or it might, so are there drawbacks? Probably the biggest drawback, if you want to look at it realistically, is it's a technology that's only been around for so long. It's a technology that is evolving, that was, up until the new WhatsMiner and some of the other ones that are now coming out with what they call water cooled.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've seen these, right? So this, to me, like, I had a conversation with some interesting folks from Beijing that's doing a project that's basically water cooled. I don't want to go too far on like the details of it, but they're incorporating the new WhatsMiners into some heating and cooling, or it's not cooling, but heating systems. And it literally just dawned on me like yesterday or 2 days ago, like, and I don't want, this is like maybe will ruffle feathers, but it's kind of like, it's okay. The immersion industry may or will be, in hindsight, 100 years from now or something, or 20 years from now. Immersion and dielectric fluid, to me, while I think it is a great technology and I want to sell some of them and I want to see some of those being used, it's like the CFL bulb. It's like we had a regular light bulb and then everybody said, well, this uses a lot of energy and creates a lot of heat. Same thing. It's a resistance light bulbs. When they get super hot, that's this.
Okay.
So electric thing hits a node, it has to dissipate somewhere. It's 100% efficient at providing electricity as heat because all the electricity goes away as heat. Well, and light, but light isn't. Anyway, that's too far into building science, but resistance heaters are what they say 100% efficient as far as translating the energy to heat, but they're terrible in efficiency as far as like they're the least effective way to do it. You can get electricity and use a heat pump, use less electricity to make the same amount of heat, but again, upfront costs and applications. So it's all, this is kind of one of the things that is the biggest pet peeve of me, is about like defining words, defining topics, and defining things before you discuss, because it gets a lot of like not regular people, but people that aren't in the building science world get very confused about a lot of terms when they hear things like efficiency and you can argue both sides. The greatest thing I learned in statistics class is figures don't lie, but liars can figure. So you can say things in different ways to say things. Okay, well, this is more efficient. Sure. Efficiency in the use of the transmitted electricity, but what about X, X, and X? And that's usually where the conversation falls apart, because people don't want to have a longer conversation. They don't want to get to like the actual data. So like they just go, well, you get in tussled up argument. But back to the fun stuff on hashing the heating homes. These exist. They need to be cooled. In the future, I think we're going to leapfrog past the immersion and go right to water cooled, and then have the heat already be in water, and we don't have to worry about pumps leaking dielectric fluid and things like that. So that's where we're going to get to, I think. But as where we are right now, immersion's still playing a role.
Well, can I ask you a couple questions? Let's go back to your experience. Like, so obviously, if people are already Bitcoiners, they're excited about this as a tool. And so the conversation about what's the most efficient way to do something, it's like there's other layers and variables in here that we're not just producing heat. we're making
Mhm.
sound
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so clearly you and I get that as Bitcoiners, people who are
Trading network, decentralizing, and
all
yeah,
of it.
all
And so that to me, you know, as a new, I'm still consider myself a very new Bitcoiner, you know, just a little over a year into this and really getting it. And I'm like, oh wow, I got to get more and learn and understand, you know, this whole concept. But like, rather than me thinking like I'm going to go out to all the people who have no clue about what money is and have no clue about all this and try to like orange pill them, I'm realizing that it makes more sense for me personally to be like, okay, here's the epicenter of Bitcoiners. Yeah, Maxie's great. Just kind of going tier by tier by tier outward and having the conversations seems more um, impactful. Certainly there's impact with people. I'm not like a Bitcoin educator. I need to learn a lot more, but
you
like
are. No,
I, I'm a cheerleader. That's for sure.
you're providing the platform for anybody that is an educator to speak.
Yeah, and so that's kind of where I feel like I'm kind of an air traffic controller, platformy type person. Yes, you're correct. And so, but again, like to with the building people who are just so not wanting to go there with the deeper conversation, it's like, is it a good strategy for you focusing on just like, let's serve all the Bitcoiners who want to do this and demonstrate like, because I live in the cold. I have to use propane and electric heat for my home. And I would love to set up some miners and just be like, can I somehow pump the heat into my duct system?
Yeah,
And
let's focus. Let's go back to like the basics and the
yeah,
fun.
so let's get us Bitcoiners settled, and then we can start going and getting the new developers and designers to integrate this into their stuff, because then we can have our proof of work of like, guess what? Now I have no, you know, non KYC Bitcoin, and my house is warm, and yay, right? So let's go there.
Yeah. I just let me stay on. We're going to stay on the same vein, and we're going to stay there. But I'll throw up like the air of caution thing, or the air of caution flag, right? And the reason why I was sort of saying that, right, is this is the crux of the question. Okay, someone's going to throw around those words like, how long does it take to pay it back? Well, I don't know.
Right.
I don't know about the Bitcoin difficulty. I don't know about your home leakage. I don't know about any of those things. I know if you want these trends, if you like this trend of this thing, and you like the principle, let's go forward. But the only reason I sort of like bring like some of that stuff up is because this is the tricky thing. Do you want to spend a little teeny bit of, you want to spend less money? One end of the spectrum is less money, but operating sooner, and yes, generating a lot of heat, and probably maybe paying like a similar utility bill, but yet getting sats for the utility bill, or close 70, exact number might not be there, but it's say 70% or 100% of your utility bill. Now you're getting what you would, it's around $30,000 give or take was at my house, $30,000 Bitcoin. If I bought Bitcoin, $50 worth, or if I use $50 worth of electricity, it was around the same sort of break even point for me. Just something to throw out there. But so the thing is, okay, I can buy some real world example here. Four S9, four old Antminer S9s that are pretty dirt cheap nowadays. Let's say they're $200. Okay, that's $800 I've invested, and this is what was like dawning on me the other day. So I put $800. Let's call it 1,000. Gets to your house, you play around with it. They're plugged in, they're running in your house, and they're kicking out air, and they're warming your house. That's like as basic as you could be, right? Like I just plugged in these four things. They are easily plugged into any wall socket because they're S9s. But S9, not as efficient at turning electricity into terahash as a newer S19, or newer, even better than S19, say WhatsMiner, water cooled, or one of these other ones. But guess what? Those other ones cost a whole bunch. So they can get you your Bitcoin faster, but they're going to cost you more upfront. And if it breaks down, well, then what? Then what? So like well, would I rather have a $200 thing break down and spend nothing on immersion equipment, nothing on all the rest of this stuff, and then, or do I have a unlimited crazy budget and I want to improve technology, I want to see how far I can do, and I want to design all these things on the other end of the spectrum and get the best and the best and the best, and get my big, and heat my pool and do all the, so there's all those kind of like spectrums, but you want to inform. I want to, and this is from my building material, general contracting experiences. It's like, if you don't tell everybody all the different options ahead of time, and 6 months later they find out there was another thing, then they're like, oh my God, bro, why didn't you tell me that there was the other furnace that was 90%? Well, you didn't, so that's where you want to say and that's why I kind of came to this conclusion of the CFL and the LED, right? Because for a long time we got to run generators, and it all comes back to Burning Man. It comes back to these other things. Well, we had to run all these generators to run these old lights because they use a lot of power. And then we got this other one that used less power. And now we have LEDs, and we can do wonderful art with all this LED, and it runs off a battery. Well, wow. How did that happen? Well, because people said we're using too much electricity for lighting, and the lighting manufacturer. So this is, I get all these like weird life experiences, but they play, because I had a friend whose dad was a big engineer at Philips and all these lighting places, and he said they literally knew we're get to LEDs, and we're going to get to fiber optic cable, and we're going to get to fiber light, but we can't get to it from here. We have to do this other thing for the next so many years so that we can reduce energy usage on lighting in buildings. So let's do the CFL. Everybody hates the CFL. Has to have a little mini drive, has all these parts in it. They knew they were going to get rid of that within 10 years. So, but if you were in the middle going, oh, I'm going to dedicate my life to CFL and sales, and well, shit, now I'm screwed because now LEDs. So that's maybe what's going to happen with immersion. Maybe it's going to play out for a longer period of time, but they're going to go right to the water cooled, and there's going to be a set number of things in between that are going to, so back to your house and back to the fun stuff, you can go basic. And to me, some of my work is trying to figure out ways to just use the old, what someone might call e-waste, all right, or whatever. So we've got a lot of factors here. Well, don't get rid of all those things just yet. Let's get a hold of them, get rid of the fans that make noise. Let's get rid of the other aluminum and recycle that out, whatever. Let's just take the hash boards and put them into other things that naturally already blow air, like a whole house air filter situation, or a whole house, what do they call them? ERVs, energy recovery ventilators. So most big commercial buildings, most big custom homes want to have a system that brings fresh outdoor air in and exhausts indoor stale air. When you make a super tight home, as all the building codes are now calling for, you've got to get fresh air in and out. And when you do that, you push a lot of CFM through a 8-inch duct. So now you can interject a little box that has these, that's already moving the air. And now all things do is get electricity and get hot or turn off. And then they go. This is where it gets really weird, because if you run one of these boards at 900 watts, which is about 2/3 the max, you get a whole lot more terahash per watt going in. So it's like driving your car at 55 or 75. Well, you might get there a little bit faster, but you're going to use 4 gallons more on your trip.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather just get there 20 minutes slower and save $40 of energy.
Right.
And get, so trickling the common home furnace, you think, oh, it comes on and it comes off, and it comes on, it comes off, right? Like a gas furnace, and it blows hot air for a little while and then it stops. That's because like a little flame inside there flames are literally flaming up, heating the air inside this box, and the other air is passing over that box. It's not like a fireplace heating the air kind of and mixing. It's 2 separate spaces, and the other part, of course, would kill you because it's the exhaust that goes out the exhaust of the chimney. So the hot air, so the same kind of thing. This has no combustion going on inside. This is just electricity. Air is going to pass over that, and it's going to convect the BTUs into this airspace of your house, which is then going to heat the mass, which is the walls and all those other things. This brings me back to all like the building performance stuff. Like if you kind of, when you get geeked out into science and building science and natural sciences, you just see the world in a way of like more physics and less, there's a chain, there's a ledger for everything, and there's no way to escape. There's this much carbon on Earth. There's this much X on Earth. Where is it? That's always the bottom line of all these questions.
Dude, seriously.
Sorry, I don't know too much.
No, this is so cool. Check this out. This is super cool. This morning, so Erin from Death and Bitcoin's been staying with me for like the last couple weeks here. It's been amazing.
Yeah. I heard her. I had about half an hour of that, but I didn't see the rest.
She's great. And so we've just been talking, but I've been like kind of coming up with this, like something with this life process about like, what are we actually doing? Like, I think, and I'm going to go on a tangent. I promise I'll get back to it.
No, please. I do it all too much.
But like everything, even though there's an infinity as a concept is a constraint, in my weird opinion. And because it's the concept of infinity is a unit. And so to me, thinking of, the Bitcoin, how many Bitcoin are going to be mined eventually, how much love is going to be mined in the world, how much energy is there in the world. And I think of it as like a closed system, sort of, because it's already all there. Everything's already there. We're not making anything new. We are shifting the form of its energy, just like energy can either be created or destroyed. All that merely changed. And that is really true, I think, conceptually for our love, our hearts. A lot of people are like, I have to go grow love and I have to go grow this or make art or make this, make. All you're doing is reassembling something that already exists. And sometimes when you don't feel the thing that you're wanting to feel, there's something blocking it, but it doesn't mean it's not there. And the cycle of nature, right? And it's like the seed already has all the information to become the oak tree. It's not making something new. It's just moving other things around so that it can form that oak tree. It's moving atoms and stuff. And so I think about like this mindset of the hashing to heating, right? Like it's already there. And what are we going to do with it? And how do we rearrange this wonderfulness called heat from making, Bitcoin and, or making the hashes to hopefully find the Bitcoin? It's like, okay, rather, you said something about the going from the CFL and all those people trying to, in the middle ground of going from, the old lights to the LEDs. Mm-hmm. It's like, that's the bridge, right? There's always this bridge, but like those folks are in the business of light. They're in the business of selling light, right? It's like we're in the business of heat, right? If you're looking at this, it's like whether this heat's coming from the, air heat, like you said, or liquid heat, it's just like, that's what we're going to keep understanding, that this is what you're up to. So it will evolve, it will adapt, it will change. Something's going to change it in 100 years from now. Who the heck knows with what's going on. So I don't know. I just think this is so cool. And I think about like for all of us to reframe our perspective to, like you said, you can't just go and give the exact number of like, well, when is I going to get the payoff of this? It's like,
you have to believe in the vision.
Always it depends, right? Yeah. And it's like, what's your decision matrix look like? And what are all the variables that go into that decision matrix? And so, and then you can give people an idea to make their informed decision, right? How do I want to get the S19? Do I want to just go find some old ones and plug them in, right? And so let's talk about like what's going on for you right now with like the business. So I'm going to pull up your website here in a second here. What's going on with hashing to heating as far as I know you're just getting this started. This is new and exciting. Like, have you been helping other folks yet? What's going on with their
let's see. I mean, it's super fun. There you go. That's great job. What's going on with hashing to heating? Well, what really surprised me is like like they always say in like the Bitcoin space moves quickly and that type of thing, or like the don't look, things are just like 1 year is like 5 years, but it literally does seem kind of like that, because I looked back and I realized that August 6th of last year was like the first Twitter post, that I had. So I've had this, I've been kicking around with all these different ideas for a long time, as far as since I've had my miner I got in 2017, right at the tail end of everything all running up is when I actually received a miner.
Okay.
That December, right? Like that January. So I was like, okay. And then I said, well, I had the idea, but I was still, the challenge that I have is living in the world of Southern California and always having to work so hard to live, and then you got to have your spare time to get something started. So it takes a little bit longer. That's like I just wanted to say like a minute ago, like what you said that's my little tagline at the bottom left, is like integrating, where is it? The bottom.
Integrating an idea into what we already know.
It's just like you're saying, it's like, well, we already do these certain things. Let's just substitute the hash boards as the source of heat and then move on. So it kind of came about as, this is a fun name. I work in building construction, and I would always try to tell people about this, and they didn't really understand. So I was like, well, and then it was more a lot like I would try to talk to people, and I would take it would be like a 2-hour conversation if they wanted to talk about it, and they would get all confused. And I was like, I'm just gonna make a web page so you can go there on your own time and look, and I'll try to put it all in one place. So that was like one of the starting points.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I jump into the Twitter space. Let me see if anybody else is doing this. And all these guys that are sort of like in my field, I could give a shout out to them all in a minute, but all these guys that I've come to know in the last year are all kind of similar. They're all just out there on their little islands, doing something in this field, but not much media or anything like that. So it was like, but it was literally has only been like 1 year, and a lot of things have transpired. So it's about 5 months too long. It takes like a whole lot of time to make a web page. You'd be surprised. Like, you can't have certain colors next to colors, and there's all these different rules and different laws about web pages and things, but it's out there. And I digress. But so when I started interacting with all these other guys, we started saying, well, we need a centralized place for, like if you go, there's a resource page with a network section on it. That's where like everyone was, well, I'm going to send you my Excel list. I'm going to send you my list. We're all sharing lists on emails with each other.
Nice.
All these different people. You can search it. You can sort it, like a typical type thing by whatever. So you could go in there and you could search like ASICs or wind or like something, and you're going to find is whatever I've sort of compiled over people.
This is awesome, dude. Wow.
It's like, go there, link up with everybody, network with people, synergy, your projects, and here we go. So like that was the idea of it, and then getting all these ideas that are concepts or real world things that are really happening. I'm never going to be one to say like I'm fully transparent. I've done a whole bunch of stuff and building a whole bunch of stuff in industry. Have I built a pool heater with a hashing? No, I haven't, but I've done, all the things that lead up to it. And I built custom pools, and all I got to do is work with the trades to do it. So like this, I'm a catalyst, I'm a coordinator, I'm a project manager. I've never been a framer, but I built a lot of buildings. So I tell the people like, I'm an environmental science energy guy that comes to building to learn framing. I didn't grow up a framer and have to learn the energy side. Mm-hmm. So we all work together, and the goal is to build a house. And so I don't. It's interesting. I save like like I told you in my email, I'm sort of a little bit of a weirdo about like I hear little quips of past historical speeches or anything. I save little snippets of like stuff that I feel is part of the bigger picture. Maybe like, I don't know if you read Dean Koontz and stuff like that influences my life, because there's always like these little things that mean more than the whole, or that tie the whole together. But
yeah,
once I heard someone explain this, and it really helped me a little bit with my own, like maybe psychology or something. But because people will say, oh, you come off as negative, or you come off as this, or you always tell me the stuff that might go wrong. And I'm like, well, I guess that might be true, but it's more like for your safety and more for, I'm the guy at camp that's like, be a little bit safe. Sure, have fun, but be a little bit safe. Once in a while, if you're about to fall off something, I'm going to tell you you're going to fall. That's like where I'm at. So something's happened in this modern day and age. Things have changed, but it's okay. But the problem is, like, when you've been a project manager for like 30 years and you've like done like, wow, let's build this new plant that doesn't have any equipment in it. Let's install everything. Let's organize things. When you're a project manager for life and you're paid money to make things happen on time within a budget and make people work, guess what? Well, you're looked at as the guy who's telling them to do stuff because that's what you're paid to do. So you're like, how do I avoid this feeling of like trying to tell people what's right when I'm like, you're hired to go do that. So anyway, that's just funny part about being a project manager. And you're just like, well, I'm trying not to say this, but I also say, like I said earlier, I don't want to like withhold information to have someone find it out later that they could have got something different because I wanted a sale of the thing that I could offer. And so that's kind of where I'm. So what is Hashing to Heating doing now? Talking to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
We developing like those little things, like I said, with like prototype type stuff to talk to manufacturers to try to integrate that on one end of the spectrum. And on the other end of the spectrum, we've got this September is Pleb Minor Month, which is
cool.
part of this thing. It's cool. This is perfectly applies to you and everybody. Pleb Minor Month is a concept by Jon. He goes by Jon the Pleb, or Pleb Minor Jon, one of those two. He just changed his name. It used to always just be plain Jon. One of the rules in this industry is we all have to be named Jon. I'm Jon, Jon. Jon from Queen Heated is Jon. And Jon back in Pittsburgh area where I grew up. Well, I grew up in Philly and I went to school near Pittsburgh. He's on the East Coast holding it down. We've got some people in the Midwest. That's Jon at Queen Heated. I'm on the West Coast. Minor for Heat is in the Nevada area. So there's like people all over the country that are similar to me. And that was the other reason for trying to make the web page, was like, I wanted them to not have to spin their wheels. And if this is a shout out to everybody that hears this, it's on the bottom of the page, but all the people in that crew, the Pleb Minor crew, you can go on to Jon Pleb Minor's page. He's put together this thing for September where Max from Ungovernable Misfits is on there, is going to be doing all the interviews. And you'd have to go to Jon's page. I don't know. You could find him on that probably if you go to like the resources or whatever. Let's just see real quick if it works.
Yeah.
Right down to network. So go to search for a second. Let's see. Search up top.
Okay.
Put in Jon. Let's see what comes up.
Okay, you got
PD Giacomo. There he is. Okay, hit on Jon. What's that come up with? It should come up with his Twitter link from that.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Click.
Hey, why is it? Oh, I'm in the other thing. I'll go follow him. I think I'm following him actually.
Yeah, I'm sure you are. I was just seeing how my there's Jon comes up for Coin Heated, funny enough, or whatever. Yeah. But
okay.
But back to Pleb Minor Month. Yeah, he's putting on this thing. His wife Sarah is actually the main driver behind it, and his kids as well. And it's all like for the family. It's for families of crazy Bitcoin miners to help them come out of the basement. So instead of like the closet, like the Bitcoin mine, like they're like, "What are you doing down there, Dad?" Like,
"I'm out of the basement." So like, oh my God, that is hysterical.
The idea is like, hey, and this is dear to my heart too as well. I've got a sister in Pennsylvania with her daughter just started 6th grade, so I don't know maybe how well that is. Jon's daughter is 10 years old, and she just like made a video with her mom. She did all this stuff. She compiled all these memes, all these other people's setups, all this other this just came out like yesterday or 2 days ago. It's on my I retweeted it, but so his deal is Pleb Minor Month, probably 20, 30, maybe I don't know how many different people he's got lined up, but he's got a whole slew of people lined up where do podcasts and things like that, and they're going to show videos of everything, how to, open source, whatever, all their designs, all that kind of stuff, which is kind of, like I said, why I was trying to get the web page together was like, I wanted to do it, and people would email me stuff, or they'd call, they'd get in touch with me and they'd ask me questions, and I'd grab this link from there and this link from there and this document from there and send them like these email. And I was just like, whoa, I got to put it all in one place with all the links. And just say, just go there, just go there and look under this section and read all that stuff. And if you have any questions, let's go from there. But it's definitely kind of like, it's all there if you want to learn about hashing to heating and any, that was the idea. And then let these other guys in any other, market or whatever, if they either want to just be affiliates or they want to take the web page and just put in their logos and that kind of stuff to make it easy, because it's a pain in the ass to make a web page, and it looks all right and it's functional, and so that was kind of it. And then we all communicate with each other in like different back channels and that kind of stuff, and we're figuring out. I talked to some people out in New York. Some of these things, probably are like slightly confidential sort of stuff, but like talk to a lot of people, and that's where this industry is now. There's no council. There's no we've got Pleb Minor Month. We've got different few conferences, but they're never focused on, maybe there's a mining conference, but it's not Bitcoin only. It's all kinds of mining, so it's like Bitcoin mining only, Bitcoin in industry, Bitcoin for heating. Those groups haven't really necessarily formed up, other than we're, quasi communications, and we have our channels, but we're not known on the national world, and we're not approaching. This is like the challenge of Bitcoin, right? Because it's on one plane, it's like, it's all this stuff. It's the Grateful Dead, Burning Man, and Bitcoin, and the similarities and the hilariousness of like, well, that's great because this, but then you're like, well, but also regular people don't understand it because they can't understand something like that doesn't have a spokesperson or doesn't have an official answer.
Well, and to your point, there is.
You're all doing it wrong and you're all doing it right.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no right or wrong way to do this, obviously. And I think the challenge comes with from what I see, is this ethos of Bitcoin and this everything's decentralized and everything's, screw the system and screw all that, old stuff.
Later.
But the reality is we have
any of those things in the white paper. He never said anything about a political party. He did say about capturing the heat and using it for heat. He did. But anyway, it's very funny because human nature is human. And now we're into the second part of the thing. We can go deeper, but anyway, no.
Well, there was a quote that you had here from Satoshi. It says, if you're using, and I'll put this in the show notes and stuff, but it says, if you're using electric heat where you live, then your computer's heat isn't waste. It's equal cost if you generate the heat with your computer. If you have other cheaper heating than resistance electric, then the waste is only the difference in cost. Bitcoin generation should end up where it's cheapest. Maybe that will be in cold climates where there's electric heat, where it would essentially be free. Satoshi Nakamoto, August 9th, 2010, the bitcointalk.org website. You got that from. And so that to me is huge, of course. And, again, I love the Pleb Minor Month and coming out of the basement and getting this into action for people, and so how do normal people like me, who the only thing I know how to do is put something in the wall with a plug, and I know how to do DJ chords and stuff. So, but I'm not I don't solder, I don't saw things, I don't do any of that. How would somebody like me turn, if I got a miner, turn it into heat in my house? Would I hire you to come over and assess my home? Would I look at videos? I don't want to blow anything up or burn anything down.
Yeah. Well, there is specifically back to the page, I guess, because there's a page on the resources under, what is it? Home hashing and education. There you go. And then there's home hashing DIY.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Essentially, there a little bit to start, and then you would look at things like, you don't have to learn all these things necessarily, but there's a few things where it talks about just electrical energy safety and some there's because other people are experts, and I like to just focus, give it to them. They've written some great articles about things like that, just without like trying to reinvent the wheel or trying to come out with like hashing the heatings guide to. There's a million perfectly well written guides, and like up at the very top, power distribution for home miners. He talks all about that kind of thing, on safety and everything. Building Performance Institute, the second one down, that's the sort of like where I came at all this building science stuff from. So if you are a building science geek, you go to Building Performance Institute, you learn to look at the house as a whole system,
Mhm.
the parts. It's like, like DJ, right? You got the bass and you got the drums and you got the top and you got this and you got this mixing. The whole thing is sound.
Yep.
They all work together. When one's missing or one's broken or one's wide open, well, it's no good. So that's like when you think of your house as a system as a whole, an envelope, these kind of terms that are used. So Building Performance Institute's a great place to start. Manual J has to do with air distribution and things like, so this is a common thing when people get into Bitcoin mining. They underestimate movements of air. Because air, the thing you learn in building science is just think of air as water. You can't see it, but it's fluid, and it's the same as like your house is like an igloo cooler or your house is a fish tank. If there's an igloo cooler, you keep everything cool inside, and if you drill a bunch of holes in it, well, then it's not going to keep the things cool inside. And if you keep everything inside, but you don't replace the air inside, well, the air inside is going to get really nasty. So there's like all these, basically everything is push me, pull me. A building itself is essentially walls that are holding themselves up by not falling in against themselves. So everything is always like that in nature. It's like always like, if you have too much humidity, well, you're going to get mold. If you have not enough humidity, you're going to get dust mites. If you're going to have this. So building science is finding that perfect in between. Manual J has to do with how they balance airflow in traditional homes. Okay. So before you take a fan that's going to suck a bunch of air and blow it really fast through these hash boards to cool them off, you just have normal homes where it's X amount of square feet, and the furnace, like I said, is going to come on every so often and throw some hot air into the room. It's going to gently dissipate over time into things. And if you have a really leaky house, well, it's going to go right out. If you have a really tight house, it's going to stay in a long time. So those are just typical principles, right? So I'll throw a little bit of thing at you. Hot moves to cold. High pressure moves to low pressure. That moves to dry. Those are three universal principles that rule the world and physical world, and it also rules building science. Okay,
so interesting. Okay, hot to cold, high to low, wet to dry.
High to low, wet to dry.
That all makes sense.
Never the other direction.
Never the other direction.
Makes sense.
Unless there's some action applied to it.
Yes, unless there's mechanical action requiring, of course, some sort of energy applied to it into the physical world. So people say, oh, I have an air conditioner. Well, you can't make cold. You can remove heat.
Oh, interesting.
This is why, why can't I make this with there? Why can't I heat ammonia? There are people going down this rabbit hole to where you can actually heat other liquids and different evaporation points, and you can play around with different things where you may be able to remove some heat. Heat, but it gets a little complicated, and it also has to do with like things like ammonia, which are extremely toxic, and if you had a leak, you wouldn't have it at your house. So those things are out of the picture. But yeah, hot moves to cold. So nature is always trying to equilibrate across whatever membrane or whatever it is there. So if it's a wall and it's super cold outside and it's warm inside, the hot's trying to get out. The cold's never trying to get in. Hot moves to cold. Hot wants to equilibrate and make 60 degrees on one side and 40 degrees on the other side. It makes everything 50.
Right. I remember when I used to teach sailing, and I was okay with this, but I remember, I think it was the the pressure differential between the wind on the sides of each sail. And I remembered learning about what creates lift. And so that's sailing, the lift. Bernoulli.
Somewhere else on the world, there's a low pressure.
Yeah.
Somewhere else there's a high pressure, and the air rushing in between to fill that equilibrium is wind.
Right. Well, and then the sail gets pushed, or the wing gets lifted.
Energy is but the wind is created by that one principle: high moving to low.
Okay. Yeah.
Or hot moving to cold, because there's hot on land and there's cold water, and there's a draw of air.
Well, this is another conversation too. I had Hawaii Nate. You know what he's up to with the ocean and all that. I'm like, oh my God, this is so exciting to just see like what all of our genius Bitcoiner men like you, and women too, but for the most part, it seems to be men doing this, which is fine, Yeah,
but I'm meeting with this woman next week, Marissa, who she was just on the Progressive Bitcoin podcast the other week.
Cool.
She's an environmental science master's degree holder who tried to do it. Well, I don't know the whole story, so I won't mix it up or say something wrong. Someone could listen to her podcast or check her out. But Marissa, she ends up she lives in the town where I live, and she went to school at this UCSB, which is Brennan School, which is a super famous like environmental studies school.
Nice.
They looked at her PhD thesis all had to do with Bitcoin and that type of thing, and so she's a perfect example.
Hell yeah! All right, cool. What's her name? Marissa what?
Yes, I don't have it off. Let me.
All right, text it to me or whatever.
I'll look on the thing because I don't want to waste the live stream thing.
Yeah, that's totally
cool.
Hold
on, I'll pull it up real quick because I got it right here on Twitter, and this is
okay. Cool.
Modern age.
Yay! Go Twitter! I love it.
Marissa, her handle is, her full name is come on, Marissa. MERISSA_CO, and it's Marissa Coelho, COELLO.
Okay, cool.
Pointer, environmental engineering, climate change resilience, decolonization, regenerative ag, feminine energy, all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm meeting her next week, and she's going to maybe help out a little bit with hashing to heating things, and because she's of that whole great new generation that's digital native and can help me do some stuff that I want to do with some graphics and do some things with some charts and some stuff and other things, and whatever we progress to, I'd love to have her do lots of things. She's also working with a wonderful group that you might have heard of called Versine. Have you heard this one yet? Versine Energy?
No.
I'll shout out to them, and then we'll get back to hashing to heating too. But they're the ones doing the landfill methane capture.
Oh, cool. Okay, VERSENE
or VERSENE or something like that. It's very close.
But they're doing landfill like trash to hash.
That was my little fun kind of name I thought of. But
I saw that. That was great.
That's if you click on that, that's their story.
Okay, cool.
Their story. But they're out of Berkeley, California. They have a pilot one supposedly going in Central California somewhere, and then they're going to roll out to the nation. And there's other companies doing this, but it comes to me because my first job out of school was doing sampling at landfills, like all the water, groundwater, and there's a lot of sampling that has to go on to keep landfills in compliance. Mm-hmm. Ones that have been closed for many years, but they all had methane stacks or flare stacks. But in most states, they're not even required to flare it. So as an environmentalist, this is why, as an environmental science person, it always blows my mind that we can't agree that Bitcoin's the way forward, because it really just, it's so simple, and it addresses things that have been forgotten for 50 to 100 years and overlooked and just like brushed under the rug. And they're like the only ones that are actually going to go out and address it are going to be Bitcoiners. So that's why it's a Trojan horse for any environmental issue. It's just like so exciting to. You asked me what hashing to heating was up to. Hashing to heating is trying to focus on hashing to heating because he gets so excited about all these other things and goes, oh, landfills. Well, methane is, super important. And I used to work in landfills, and I'm excited about landfills. Oh, and then I start, well, we could do a container that's next to the container at the landfill that uses the hot for what? Candle making. Sure. This, that, what, beef jerky, what, so that's where I come back to sustainable living, localism, 100-mile radius type, whatever it might be, to where what are you doing where you live? No, we don't want to import beef jerky from here to dry beef jerky. Maybe you make candles. Maybe you do this. Maybe you have a resource for whatever else that's going to need the heating. And that's kind of where I'm trying to fit in, is taking all my experiences and all my life histories and all my I worked at the Pennsylvania Fish Commission. I worked at this thing. I worked in the cooling towers of the casino. I know what they did. I try never to speak about anything that I haven't physically seen, had experience with, or know someone that's exactly told me the truth about it. Then I'm I can, and so I'm wait, there's all these things that are just, now being addressed by Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining. So it gives me hope, and it gives me rejuvenated hope as an actual person looking at the environment, to say that we can solve this.
I love that. And I love, for those of you who are listening who are younger than Jon and I are, we're
1969.
I was 1970. So we're similar. And so we're mid-century modern folks. But for those of you listening who are on your path to try to figure out what your mission is in life and what you want to do and what lights you up and what gets you excited, just listen to Jon and myself. Go do a ton of different things. That's what's going to make you a whole person. And that's going to, what's going to allow you to have all these different perspectives that you can, again, remix, glue together into something new that can solve problems for, what's going on in the world right now and add value to the world. And so the fact that you're saying, Jon, all these things that you've done in the past, it's gotten you to this point. Right. And so, and I think about a lot of people who might feel, disheartened with what's going on in the world right now, which I think a lot of us can feel that way and get susceptible to feeling down or hopeless or powerless. It's there's so many angles that we can utilize our skills and talents and gifts and point them forward, point them all in the same direction, which is forward and outward. And to me, obviously I'm a DJ. I have done businesses and stuff, but I'm better at doing stuff like this and talking and more fun, playful things. But
you're great doing this. I mean, it's wonderful that I want to hand it to you, and you got all these guests and you're getting all these things, and the fact that it's all being recorded and anyone can listen to it at wherever they are, anytime. I mean, this is going to save things, because we've come to this point now that we all, as 50-year-olds or whatever, dreamed of or thought of, or we could broadcast well, you are broadcasting, we're broadcasting. So I thank you again for bringing up. It's so hard for us when we get to this age, because I'm always no, wait, I'm 30. I'm total. No, hold on, dude. No. I feel so much like that quasi cliche person where I'm it's really true. And you add the thing up, and you're crap. And then
you're shit, I'm in my 50s. And then I'm oh my God, I fucking love being in my 50s, dude.
I do love it, but I also it's like the Groucho Marx or something. I wouldn't be a member of a club that would have me as a member. Or you're I wouldn't want to I wouldn't want to give advice to someone from me, because I know what I'm like. And then I'm well, I guess I'm okay. And like you said before, having all these experiences, you never know what stuff leads to.
Yeah.
I'll tell a little Grateful Dead story here, because it was funny. I thought you look through stuff because it's Burning Man week. I've been having my own burn at home, and I've been cleaning everything and organizing, getting my home office stuff straight, getting all these things ready, and getting rid of old energies and all those things, we say. And I come across certain things, whatever. And I was listening to some Dead shows on whatever it is, deadlistprojects.com, which is a wonderful site to listen to everything. I mean, that's where we're at, right? We've come from making tapes open source, giving away tapes 24/7. If I made thousands, I worked at this little store called Eyes of the World. Shout out to Eyes of the World, New Jersey.
Yeah, Eyes of the World. Woo!
Shout out to the late 80s Grateful Dead hippie stores, and like, making tapes for people and all that kind of stuff. But like, the funny story that I thought of when I was listening to some show, Pittsburgh 88, I was like, oh, wow, that's weird. Like, that was the one that I didn't go to because of X. And I was like, oh, so living in my grandma's attic with some friends, with a friend from college. You can tell that this might have led to some trouble. We got in a little trouble. We were asked to leave the attic apartment thing and go find our own apartment because we were 19 and 20, and we probably should have, but it was the last year at staying in Grams. Like, all my high school years, I got to live there, and then get a little older, got to move out on my own, details aside. And so, details aside, we had tickets for Pittsburgh and we had tickets for Maine. And well, because of the whole circumstances, I said, well, you, my friend that was living with me, you go out to Pittsburgh instead, take these, and I'll just take the Maine tickets. And a couple of days or weeks later, I came upon this little store, Eyes of the World, that just opened. They have a little thing up on the bulletin board. We need Maine tickets. Oh, I've got Maine tickets. This is South Jersey, 1988. We always have to remind the kids, there's no internet, there's no this, there's no cell phone, there's none of those things. You talk to human beings, you went places, you wrote messages and left it like.
You sent in your ticket request in a.
Oh, you did all that. You drove all the way to New Jersey and then couldn't meet someone because they were on the other side of the bridge and they wouldn't let you over there, and there was no other way to communicate. And you're like, oh well. And I sent notes across the burned and burned bridge across the highway trying to find someone because I couldn't get to the other parking lot to get a ticket once upon a time, and like there was no, and that was it. We didn't get our tickets because we couldn't. Anyway, so so I didn't go to the Pittsburgh shows. I had the Maine tickets. I go in, I say, I got some Maine tickets, and then like we went up to see the Maine shows, and they hired me, and I worked there like the next 5 years in a row. So it's always like, and led to amazing adventures and all kinds of wonderful friends and just the amazingest life that happened from being not allowed to do something. So it might be, whatever job you're in, whatever, it might feel dead endy, it might feel this, or it might feel something, but you're like, oh wait, all right, when I was cleaning out those tanks, I learned about, cooling fluids. And now 15 years later, I'm like, oh, cooling fluid, I can use that with a Bitcoin miner.
Right.
It's just always like something you don't realize where it's coming from.
I think it's something that's super important for all of us. And I love your story. And it's like, remember, guys, like every little step that you take, every breath that you take is like, if you choose to use it, obviously for good, it can be used for good. If you choose to remember, like, what's the gift here? What's the lesson? What's the blessing? What's the nugget that I can take forward on this masterpiece called life? It changes the way that you do things. And so it's really, really cool to help you shift your perspective, especially again, if you're feeling disheartened or down or a little lost, perhaps, and so sometimes it's like giving yourself that permission to just be with what is, look at what's around you. Okay, what can I adopt here and kind of integrate it going forward into my life? And so that's what's just, it always is, right? You think about like I broke up with somebody and I'm never going to be with someone again, or I lost this job, or I moved from this house to another state across the ocean. And it's just like, there's always something magical that shows up. And even though you have to let those other things go, but it's like you talk about the physics of, the things, the natural order of things going from, wet to dry, or high pressure to low pressure, or from hot to cold, right? And it's just like, okay, that's how life goes, right? It's always going to be like this lava lamp of us moving forward and to the next thing, and something else is going into that next, and and then the forward thing. It's very psychedelic.
Else is leaving a vacuum too. Like I've heard, like when if you're running projects or you're doing certain things for a while, and then like you want to leave, or you want to go do something else. I've always had this, always had a nagging thing of like, oh, I don't want to leave because if I leave, and like, I'll give my mom credit. Like, it's like one of the things like your mom will tell you, like, were they in existence before you worked there? Yeah. Well, they're probably going to be they'll probably be okay if you leave. Like, I guess you're right. So it's like, you got to understand that there's, it's just the way of things. Yeah. Like you said. And when you're in it, you can never see that 30-year, like shortcut kids. It's always good. It always seems, and it's okay to feel, like you're not in the right place, because that's what's driving you to go do something else.
Exactly.
But it's also like, it's okay to respect the people that are in that place, and that's what they're going to do in life too, maybe, or something. Like wherever you work, someone's going to might be like the person that works there 30 years straight, and that's their whole thing at their whole office, and they've been at that job forever. That's just what they focus on that, or they didn't focus. They focused on something else in life, and that was just like automatic. Whereas me, I'm more like, well, I'm defined more like the thing that I'm doing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's pretty fun though. I think you've obviously done a lot, Jon, and you're continuing to do a lot to go forward. I'm really passionate about this space because not just the Bitcoin space, but what do we do with the heat?
Mm.
That's a huge thing for me. Like I remember even before learning about Bitcoin, I was interested in how can we take like kinetic energy and turn it into lights, and so I was like, can we turn dance floors into, like, because I know there's a place, I think it's in Oregon, there's like is it the Crystal Ballroom or something, the dance floor bounces and it creates like piezoelectric energy something, and so they turn it into some, and I'm like, why don't we do that with like everything? Like, because to me it takes obviously energy to turn your car into energy to move your wheels and stuff, and I'm like, well, is there anything we can do with that how can we create the least amount of waste and be efficient with the energy that we're using in the world? And so the fact that we get to make money, real money, the hardest money that has ever been known to
that part, there's that part of it too.
That's like, so what a great way to capture heat that's generated, and that we need too, and repurpose it. Like it's that repurposing part. So I really want to keep diving into this with you, Jon, because I think that we need to get this actionable technology out there. And I have to admit, looking at the website and this the resource page and everything, I'm overwhelmed. And I'm overwhelmed because I'm a beginner. And I'm like, okay, I want to start with one thing, and then I want to take one action step. And so what I want to help you do in all of this industry is like, how do we get this for the spectrum of us out there who are people like you, who are geniuses in this department, to people like me who are plug and players, and how do we get, the broader use case out there for people to put this in their homes? Like I love the idea of taking the old S9s and just being like, cool, plug them in, and that's what you get, and you get some heat. So I'd love to maybe put out there to you, like, let's, I want to learn a little bit more about what the schedule is for the Pleb Miner month. And then maybe we could put some I want to help promote it. And if you guys are doing things, I'd love to just promote everything that you guys are doing. But like, let's get the simple people like me, the plebs, to figure out, like, how do we do this too? At the same time, obviously, that you're serving the more industrial audience and the more, building, big.
Yeah. I think, just like I said, I always want to make sure that I'm transparent about myself, or I'm not, I'll use a kid's term. I don't want to LARP, right? So I'm not trying to say I've done X or, these are possible things. These are things I would love to help with. These are things that I'm working on, but it's almost like a double-edged sword, Valerie, to what you were just sort of saying, right? Is like, well, there's X amount of, let's say, building professionals or heating professionals or people that have some background in this field that are in the Bitcoin hashing to heating area. And out of those people, some are doing this and some are doing that, and some are maybe but in order to get everything plug and play and into the plug-in regular homeowner's hands, right? The fastest way in my mind to do that is to get these other manufacturers to understand the concepts and things and to integrate them. So you don't have to think about that. You just say, oh, I'm going to buy a new heater. Well, Carrier has a gas furnace, they have a water hydrated heated one, if you have a boiler, or they have a Bitcoin one. So when we get to that thing and they've integrated, like it's like I said, it's been so fast moving. It's like initially, oh, I thought, well, I was going to have to try to do this, that, or the other. And then I realized, well, there's so many other people doing things. Like this guy's really great at controls. This guy's really great at doing the integrating of the software with the control system. This one's this one, and they're all, so someone to catalyze and someone to be the DJ and pull this to this to this to this and make a system that works and then prove that out. That's exactly where we're at this stage, essentially. But there are also manufacturers at the same time that have seen all this, that are leapfrogging ahead and have standalone out of the box immersion kit where you just drop your miners in, you plug this and this into a hot and cold liquid line, you know, to simplify it. There are systems now that have taken these concepts, they're making them, they're available, they have a price tag. Okay, well, then it's going to be X and X, and you're going to be an early adopter, and you're going to be, maybe there's going to be some ups and downs, maybe not, maybe it works perfectly, but we've gone leapfrogged past somebody like me saying, I need to find this pleb that knows a little bit about something, and me come up with like, oh my God, I can just buy one from Fog Hashing. I can just buy one from XTX, or, you know, a couple of these different like ones that are out there. I'm going to butcher their names, but they're all that kind of like there on the page to look through. There's a lot of like off the shelf stuff that like even in the 6 months or 5 months or whatever that you and I have talked, from like saying, what can we do in your house? It's been like, well, we can rig this thing up, or we can, you know, you've been out to the playa a million times. So you see like engineering that works, and then there's engineering that's pretty, and then there's engineering that gets accepted by the city inspector. Yeah. And then engineering that you can buy at Walmart or, you know, soon. So
totally. Well, and I think
on that chain, but you know,
yeah. And I think to your point, you know, comparing the Burning Man vibe, it's like every year is different, clearly. Yes. And you learn what does and does not work from the year before and the years before, and then you apply it going forward, right? And then sometimes you take some old stuff and you keep rebuilding with that. Sometimes you're like, fuck it, we're going to start, you know.
As a business, as a person, general contractor, or, you know, any kind of business, you don't want to sell someone down the road, or you don't want to sell someone something that, like, you know, like I said, will be improved.
Yeah, the obsolete thing.
I've make mistakes with their money. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want you to buy things and have it break. You know, so that's like where it's like the tricky part. But the easiest way, I mean, the easiest, simplest way for your house, I don't know how big it is. You said you have a propane furnace, and
yeah. So the way that my house is laid out right now, I have it's a propane furnace, like a pushed air gas, whatever, in part of the house, like in the bedrooms and the main floor, and then down here in the basement, my love lab. I have, and then part of the upstairs too, it's the radiant heating that goes through the hot water, the electric hot water heater thingy.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
So I've got two systems, and then I don't know what's going to happen this year. I'm like, is there like a space heater?
When you say the radiant one has like a wall radiators or something?
No, it's in the floorboards. That's water or a liquid that goes through the water heater thingy.
Like warm floor, they call them typically, right?
Okay, yeah, warm floor. I have two warm floors.
Okay,
so it doesn't heat that well,
right? And that goes to a boiler that is independent of your hot water.
Yeah, right? It's a whole separate hot water electric heater.
When you take a hot shower, that's hot water, and that comes from also electric or propane.
That's propane. So those two are propane. But
that's a great example of where like the concentrated energy, the density energy of propane is better for heating the water in that case, and it's more efficient than using electricity. Mm-hmm. But if you lived in a place like where I lived, there's many places where they didn't have any gas lines to the development, so they only have electricity. Or if you're, you know, so that's where it makes a whole lot of sense. In your case, you're using electricity to heat the water in the warm floor area. I always stumble a little bit. This is where it's like, this is where the building performance guy, and why I sort of jumped into like the Bitcoin thing when I saw what everybody was doing, because I was like, oh my God, you're going to wreck yourself. Like you're going to suck out the air from the room where you need combustion air for the gas furnace. There's like, that's building performance is like, well, you don't cause negative pressure. They call it the Thanksgiving Day Massacre, right? Which is like everybody's inside your house. The windows and doors are all shut up. Everybody's taking a whole lot of showers and baths and all those types of things. They're using all this hot water. They're running the hot water and the heater and all these things. And then something's wrong with the exhaust, and all the carbon monoxide is actually getting sucked back in the house because they're running like the fan from the kitchen or something. And if you don't have proper setups of how you build and design a house, right, there can be problems. And now you're going to suck noxious air that used to come up the chimney. Now it's going to go back down and cause problems. So this is why I had a panic attack when I saw how a lot of people, well, I'm going to stick this and I'm going to plug it into my duct and I'm going to do that and I'm going to do it. I'm like, bro, where is the air coming from? Where is it going to? What could it possibly back pressure against? Well, I don't know why my fans are overheating because I'm trying to put, there's something called the stack effect. There's a chart that shows you when you go through a 90 degree, it reduces the air, static air pressure by this much. And it's like, slow down. We want to do these things. But we don't want to have someone blow their house up and then blame Bitcoin miners, right? Because
exactly, and that's where I'm at with it, obviously. Yeah. And it's like I was listening to Econo Alchemist, and he was talking about just the power and the electricity that goes into setting up miners at your home, and the power line from his house to the main thing out there caught fire at some point, and
that's right.
Even, and I was like, holy cow, so I have the utmost respect for energy and power and the magic that it can do. And also, of course, the devastation that it can cause.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing. Like at least in this world, safety first is at least adhered to mostly. And electricity, you can't make too many mistakes. You can make like one or two and then you might be dead. So one of those ones where you're like, you don't hear a lot of survivor stories, like, or whatever. So.
Oh my God, what a nightmare. But so this is where, again, so for those of us who are excited and wanting to dip our toes in, but do it safely, that's number one, is my, I'm like you, I'm the, like, I have a lot of mom energy in me, and I'm like, be careful over here. Like, as much as I want to go be fun and playful and crazy, it's like, I like to do it knowing that there's a strong chance I'm going to live after I'm done doing the thing that I did.
Right, you want to survive.
I'm a big fan. But so what can I do personally? Because I want to do an experiment, and then I also want to share the experiment. And like, can I hire you to be my consultant? Can I have you?
Sure.
What would be the next action step?
Yeah, we can certainly talk offline a little bit about all that, the details and things, but happy to consult with you and figure it out. And just like I said, it's like, I look at each case, they're definitely going to be case by case, because like you just described, well, I have a little bit of this type of system and I have a little bit of that type of system. One uses electricity, one uses gas. Maybe some people, with his buddy Sept, or Fight for Freedom, I know up in Wyoming, it's the same kind of thing, an old house, and then this portion of the house is this, and this part, always happens in buildings. So to me, like a lot of times I don't want to butcher into an existing thing, because if 5 years later you want to move out of the property, well, then you can just pick up whatever you have and leave, and the old system still exists exactly how it is for the new person.
Totally. Yeah.
Oh, I tore this out, or I cut a bunch of holes in this, and now what? Now you got the expense of repairing that later, or repairing that if it doesn't work right, or
totally. Yeah, we can definitely talk about that on a side note, because
smaller places I would do just like a little standalone thing that you could do with some S9s. There's a couple different ones, like Upstream Data makes that sound box, which is super awesome and great for the S19s and that kind of thing. It's a little costly to buy one like that for a home person, depending on what you're into. But but they have their open source version on how you can make one. So there's a handy person around that you could make sound boxes.
Nope.
Okay. But like, so, well, then there's ones like Light Sound Box, LITES Sound Box, which is a company out of Santa Monica, California. And they make sort of like a pre-made sound control box for different miners. Okay, so it's off the shelf. They do not recommend like tying it into heating systems, which I don't really exactly necessarily either, unless you get really, more technical. I'm not going to say just stick something into the side of something. No, let's not do that. But like, this is what my mom does. She has a little ceramics. She has like a little studio wing of the house, ceramics. She does her ceramics in there. And it was, like I said, different from the rest of the house and set up with its own little electric wall heater at one point in like the 60s when they built it.
Mm-hmm.
But since then, they've taken apart the doors that separate it from the rest of the house. So now it's all part of like one envelope or one airspace. And so it's like a cold sort of part of the house. So we got her that same thing, the Light Sound Box. It's a couple $100. You put it together and then you put the S9 inside there and you write it and you run it at like, you can run it all maxed out, but if you run an S9 at around 800 to 900 watts, which we were saying is kind of like the sweet spot, I'll give a shout out to Tech Engineer. His name is Miner for Heat. His thing is at Tech Engineer, and he's like, what I wish I had time to do, which is like doing all kinds of data crunching, all kinds of numbers. Like he's done all his bills, and he's got the data to basically show what he did for heating his place with miners. And he's worked a lot on finding the perfect sweet spots of the miners. So running, like I said, running one S9 at 800 or 900 watts keeps the whole entire studio nice and warm and influences the house.
But let me ask you real quick. Just I'm
sorry.
So I'm thinking, so whether it's this Light Sound Box or obviously does the heat come out of the box, but the noise stays in, and then it's like your own little space heater type?
Basically.
Because then you're not plugging it into all your other stuff. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you're sucking air from the living room and you're just pushing it right back into the living room, essentially, depending on how maybe I should start, it's like starting with the principles of you have this thing, the ASIC, the amp miner. It's going to make a lot of noise if you use the stock fans. Mm-hmm. Some people and they do stuff where they take the stock fans off and they do other things. Or there's one that you can look on there. Cody's rocket ship heater is is a one where he's got a open source thing, 3D print it. You 3D print this little base. You take your amp miner apart. You put this little base on, and then you buy this other. It's called an inline fan. So it's like another. Like I said, it's an off the shelf thing. You buy it at wherever you purchase this thing. He's got it in his parts list. You buy an inline fan. You get the controller for that, and then you rig that up with an S9 in between. And now you're just hearing the sound of that fan rather than the high-pitched original stock S9 fans, because all these things were made for industrial locations where no one cared about the sound. Mm-hmm. And then now we want to use them in the house. Well, it's going to scream if it's all maxed out, like maximum RPM. It's going to be half that decibels if it's like around 800-900 watts, but it's still going to be annoying enough. So you could spend some money and buy something like Light Sound Box or another one of the many, few that are online that you could buy. Most of those guys all have the open source plans where you could go and buy the parts and make it yourself, but it might be like save yourself $80 and like spend 3 hours, right? So it's not like always, those things sometimes don't pencil out.
But this is super cool though, because
like mine, I'll finish real quick, but mine, old school, like before any of that, before anybody was making anything, all people did was just find old coolers and put it inside a cooler and drill a 6-inch hole on one side and drill an 8-inch hole on the other and put a little filter box on one end and attach a flex duct to the other one and route it out to a little thing 10 feet away or whatever it might be, and just let the miner do its thing. And that's the most basic heat system. It's heating it's doing its thing, and it's not complicated at all. And you cover it up with some cool little piece of art or something, and it's a So like I could show you, like, up in, I can't show you because it's way over there, but there's up in that door.
Okay.
Up is like, that's how you get to this little attic space of my condo. And that's where I have my, the little S9 that could. It's called a little bit. That's like the name on the cooler, a little bit. So like I got a little bit up there, because you got to name it when you put it on your computer screen as well, when you're like, so little bit's up there, and it just simply sucks air through a incoming square house filter, and it pumps it out into my bedroom, which is the coldest space in the condo. Typically it's only like 900 square feet, so it's super small and all the air just moves around. But that's like the basicest thing is turn it on, it gets hot, it pushes out hot air. Over time, you just turn off the radiant heat floor if your room's warm enough, and that's it.
Okay,
like,
cool. I'm so excited to do this experiment, and
we'll
it's great. I just saw Rob from Upstream last night at the
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin Devs meetup down in Denver, which is my first.
Aaron,
yes. He's the best, dude. Like, fucking shout out to you, Rob. And so I'm going to talk to him about a couple of things, because I'm going to see him this weekend. So
those guys. That's what I said. Like, it's like I said, it feels like 5 years, but it's only like been 1 year. And it was like within like the first 2 or 3 weeks or month of being on Twitter, as a Twitter handle, that's when Spaces began. And then all of a sudden there were Spaces, and we were all doing Spaces and like hosting ones. And like, I haven't done all that many since like all that. I maybe have a face for radio and stuff. I give a shout. I was on the radio way back in the day of in Phoenix. Phoenix times I was on the radio with a good friend of mine who was a real world DJ. But so the Spaces started, and then like guys like Rob and like all these people that were all interested, we would just talk, get all excited and everything. And now it's just so exciting to watch everybody actually getting Bitcoiner jobs, getting in these industries, sharing everything with everybody else. Like, he was the one wanted to do a laundromat once upon a time. Oh, what do you think about laundromats? Which,
oh, dude, what a good idea.
He was going to buy, I don't want to say anything about his life story, but at one point he was looking into something or whatever. And like, so we talked about that for a while. And like, that's, all these things are on the list, where you're kind of like, yeah, let's do a Bitcoin laundromat with Bitcoin education, where you could get a discount if you pay in sats, and you run the dryers with hot air, and you run the boilers for the water with I mean, it's all pretty much straightforward stuff, but just money and investors to believe in it, all that. It's coming. It's exciting.
It is super exciting.
Hard to contain yourself, really. I mean, you're just like, oh my God, that's the answer. Oh, that's the answer for that. Just the bottleneck will be if they can make enough ASICs. But now Intel, I mean, like, it's like, that's why as our age, right? As our age, knock on wood, it took me a while to understand and then believe in memes, or to like, for a while I was like, oh yeah, God, it's another one of these things that people are doing. And now it's like, okay, I see the magic of memes, and I see, like, it's just funny because you're like, what? Intel ASICs? Like, probably nothing.
Probably nothing. I know, dude.
Like,
when I was at
that does not make a decision like that at all. If they don't think.
Exactly. There's zero chance that company's going to be crushing it in this department if they don't think it's going to be the thing that's going to happen in the future. Heck yeah. So I know I saw when I was in Miami in May, I guess it was April or May, whenever the conference was, they had a meme panel up, and it was, and I was just like, and I would just watch something about mining, and I was like, I'm going to go to the next room. But then I'm like, why do they have like the memers up here, And then I'm like, I'm going to check this out, because obviously part of what I love is like communication, and how are we communicating this magical message of Satoshi's out there into the world. And I mean, it was one of the best panels that I saw the whole conference, because the simplicity and the poignancy and the elegance of a meme, right? Like,
it's a new language, or it's the same, it's an old language, because we had vision before we had speech.
But then when you combine those two together in something succinct, it's like, well, it's like, that's what advertising is, right? It's like these little, they utilize these angles of how we learn and how we process information. I was listening to Quincy Jones's last book. It's called 12 Notes. It's awesome. but he was talking about how he was learning the art of storytelling and communication and messaging from advertisers. And because when he was doing film scoring and composition, he wanted to learn about the storytelling and how do you create tension and release and curiosity, et cetera, et cetera. How do you keep, what's the hook and everything?
Mm-hmm.
But one of his teachers was talking about, it's one thing to like give a sound to somebody and say something verbally to them, but they don't necessarily, the retention is only at like 15%.
Yeah.
And then the retention is if you add visuals on top of that and you say what the words are, you're over 50% of retention. And so when you're trying to teach and communicate and share things, if you're doing a visual and an audio and the words, all three of those things together, home run. You're going to get a lot more engagement and retention. And so
it's in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so just like interesting, the meme part going back to Intel.
I think it's great. I mean, and you have to speak the language of whatever group you're in. And if that's the language, then that's the language. And it's fast. Like I said, now I like doing it. I mean, it's to me, it's like political cartoons or like Mad Magazine or anything like the things that we used to have in the past where it was like the common person couldn't just whip one up in 5 minutes that looked good unless you were a graphics person on a computer or whatever. Even then it wasn't like, I mean, obviously it's a great time to be alive because you can do it. Well, it's also fast. That's what's amazing is like, we do have all the information on Earth. Every question probably we want to delve into and probably a lot of data on a lot of things, but we still like to get in a lot of arguments about stuff that could pretty much be resolved in like 10 minutes of like looking at it. We're like, no, I'm not saying I personally know this. I'm saying it's a general knowledge and it's here and it's like part of history and it's great. Like you're talking about the kids, but it's just part of getting old because you're kind of like, no. People are just saying things that are completely irrelevant to like the historical facts nowadays. And you're just like, that's what I mean. Slow down. There's a concept in electrical engineering, essentially, or buildings, whatever, that stuff that you have to get put through for permitting, that type of thing, for doing a solar system, whatever it is. This term is called single line drawing. So it's like or the same thing for doing like an envelope of a house when you're looking for leakage and that kind of thing. If you draw a line on the pen with a pencil and you have to pick up the pen at any point in the drawing, then that's where like the problem is, or that's where the falsehood is, or that's where the disconnect that won't work out with the math of the engineering is, right? So you're kind of like this many volts to this many, this amps to that, and this is going to go to this, and where is this going to, when the solar system is going to produce this, where is it going to go? And here's a single line drawing. That's like how we should apply to to everything, right? Like, it's like, well, start here and we start there. And then when this person says that, or that, research that fact right at that moment before you go like way down the rest of the paragraph. Like critical thinking is a word that people love to use. I like that word, critical thinking, but it's like, I don't know. I don't want to go down that path. It's funny. It's just the world we live in, like where everything can be examined, like just a little teeny bit slower, and just realizing like every headline, you're just like, whoa. You think about what that means. You can grab any random one and you can do it to it. It's just like, it's all one. I'll use this example and we'll go back to something positive, but it's fun. It's just like Kobe Bryant's, God bless his soul. He died, all the tragic situation was right down the road for me. Right. I mean, I live in Santa Barbara, LA's down there. This happened in like, the mountains down that way, Ventura County. And so the news headline reads, she sued LA County for $16 million because photos got out or whatever it was. Okay. Tragedy happens. But to me, I'm always like, let's examine it just a little teeny bit and say like, she sued LA County. Well, there is no LA County. LA County is the people of Los Angeles County and their taxes.
Yeah.
So a person with multi-millions of dollars got money to prove a point. Fine. Why did the pictures get leaked? Because in the fiat world, there's hundreds and hundreds of people that are trying their hardest to get the pictures. It wasn't just a random thing. People were working very hard to acquire them. They did it. They achieved their goal and they got the picture out. And now the county is in trouble because the picture got leaked of something kind of whatever, the details aside, public. Yes, it's horrible, but it happened and it's fact. And then she sued the county, and then she gave the money away to some other charity. But really the county and the citizens paid, right? And then it's like spun out to like a great story. Look, you showed the LA County sheriff that they were wrong and you did this. But if you strip away all of this stuff and you just go back to the single line drawing, money was taken from somewhere. Where did it come from? What was the reason? Where did it go? Is anyone accountable? Is anyone culpable? Did this do anything to better our future in society, or and this is like, it's universal. So anyway, I think it's part about that slowing down, part about defining the terms, part about like saying, well, what is efficiency in relation to, like Einstein's, like everything is relative to X. That's why I do all these, like, you see, I do all those weird polls and weird little like questions and stuff on my page. And it's more like to again speak people's language and to speak them. Well, if you say X, well then, and you say this is true, then you can't hold both of those things in your mind, and you have to work that out yourself. As to don't proclaim X when you just 5 minutes ago said something opposite. And this is kind of where we don't ever slow down to examine the implications of what someone may or may not say.
Yeah.
Anyway.
This is a good, this is a good rabbit hole conversation for another episode, I think, because you touched on a really great point. And I think, the fiat mindset, it lacks accountability, and it doesn't necessarily think, like you said, of what are truly the implications of what's going to happen with this next choice. Right. And so rather than, what's the value of proving a point, because that value has to come financially, like you just said, from people who weren't even involved in any of this. They have no,
they have no say, and
they have no say in it, and they have no benefit of it, but they have a cost. And so that doesn't seem like an appropriate way to live in my little humble world of values, And so to me, like, that's where I love about the mindset of how Bitcoin starts to change you. And it really does start to encourage you to think differently about what are the implications of what's going to happen. And you can't just print money because you want some. Yeah. You can't just go do this other thing. And it's like, you have to have that energy input in order to get the Bitcoin. It's so important. But, and I really do like the lack of accountability. And like you just said, like, it's a horrible situation and it's tragic. And what's going to change as a result of it? That's what we want to understand. And the only thing that, like you said, it's possibly
that's where I get the autistic in me comes out, or like I don't necessarily say I'm autistic, but like people throw that term around, and we're all on the spectrum. But like a lot of I look at everything like I said, like those physical principles, or like, I don't know the term, but like those where you have a bunch of boxes next to each other, and it's like question, and depending on how you answer, like each box, you basically get down to the bottom, and you're like, this is the result. Or like crime scene investigation, or like a lot of science stuff. People love CSI because it's science. Like they find something and then they go back and find the answer through like a bunch of different clues. It's like correlations and things like that. Like I see, like, the world is black and white, or white and black. Like people, like there's people that see, and for a while, and for many, many years, I was like upset or frustrated with certain things, or like, you're not listening, like, and they're saying the same thing about me. But I come to conclude, I think that they don't intend to harm, or they don't intend certain, like, people they just see things white or black or white. Like they'll say, this is another great headline, perfect headline thing, the situation in Jackson, Mississippi. Ugh. We should have less regulations. We should have this. F the 3-letter agencies, F this, F that, forget this, forget that. Cut taxes. Oh, well, what's the real story? Well, the real story is the inspectors came for the last so many years and told you should do something. The real story is you probably cut down on maintenance because some of the last people in the last 10 years said, cut taxes, cut this, cut spending. Well, you cut spending. And now you have a guy that went around once every 6 months instead of once a month. And now you have a problem. And now they're going to say, guess what they're going to say? No one could have seen this coming. And they say it with an honest face. No one saw this coming, except for the 12 years of reports by the agency that you want to get rid of that regulates things that you don't want to have regulations on. And then why was there a fire at the chicken plant? Well, because they closed off the vents to the thing. It wasn't a conspiracy. It was just somebody being lazy and didn't want to pay for whatever, and now it burned up. And so many plants burn up per year on average. On average.
I think we have
1928. So same thing, same average.
I know. Well, and this is
math is a pain when people,
Well, John, this is such a good point. And let's do another episode on this, or let's do spaces on this, because I think it's really important, the mindset. And, you had, and I'm not going to say who it is, but you had mentioned you really like somebody earlier today, but you didn't appreciate their stance on, climate change and whatnot. And I believe we do have a lot more to unpack in a conscious way in these conversations, because there is a lot of the hopium, there's a lot of the anarchy mindset, whatever you want to call all these kind of revolutionary mindsets that are out there. And I love it. I love them all. Love and we have to marry them with reality of human nature. We are animals, and we operate from a place of, with them, what's in it for me? And, we're not the idea of altruism and we're all going to make the right choices at the right time. That's bullshit, because we're not always resourced, whether it's, with our sleep, with our food energy, with time, with, financial resources. So we don't operate from a place of neutrality ever. Not any human does. And so when we're presented with certain ways of being and certain decisions, of course, we're going to make survival decisions. We're going to make decisions that are sometimes short-term payoff because we need to survive or eat or whatever it is. And we're not thinking about others all the time. We're not thinking about the future all the time. And so we do need to, as a society, if you have more than one person in the room, you have a group. Like two people makes a group, and you have to start having agreements. You have to have consensus. You have to have consequences. And when you start adding numbers to that, called family, called the community, called the society, you have to have rules in place, which are agreements. And so, when the group of people come through and say, this is a set of agreements that I think we all want to hang out and live by, great. Now we have to make sure that these things happen. And so the pie in the sky idea of, I love the idea of, the Bitcoiners, we want to go start citadels. Fuck yeah, let's do that. But we already have that. And can we change what we have without having to continue thinking like, let's go move to a whole nother place. Let's go start this whole new thing. And we have to have both, because everyone's not going to go start the brand new world. And even if you do, you're still going to have
Jim Jones.
Yeah, exactly. You're still going to have a new set of rules that are going to need to be thought about, agreed upon, and enforced. And that's called being human. And there's no getting around that unless you go live in a cave all alone. And so I think it's a big conversation that we need to address as Bitcoiners, because it's this us versus them mindset. It's kind of like, the system is the system. We're going to create a new system, guys, if you want to go create this new world. And so don't fool yourself into thinking your new system isn't going to have any of these agreements. It is. And so let's address humanity from that level.
That's youthful energy. And that's like a lot of different, the male brain, the female brain. There's a book by Lorraine Brenzadine, her last name looks just like Benzadine, but it's not. It's like,
okay.
Male brain, female brain. It's kind of like the newer version of Men Are From Mars, Women From Venus type thing.
Okay.
She looked at all the chemicals all the chemicals through the different stages, all the chemicals on both sides, physiological, mental, emotional, whatever. And just like, that's where like I try to, I might come off as whatever. Someone might label me as left or this or something, but I always I never wanted to have a label. I never like got my, I always want to be like, tell me the facts, tell me the science, tell me the something about like what's happening and what, like I said, like that single line drawing, like where's the accountability, who's doing what.
Mm-hmm.
Then if someone is responsible or whatever it is, like I don't believe in right or wrong. I believe in like correct or incorrect. And if something's incorrect and then someone makes you aware of it and you choose by your own personal choice to ignore that or whatever it is, then that's sort of like, I don't want to assign morality to anything or any sort of like, it's kind of like freedom is great, but I can't use motor oil on your garden. So that's why I'm always like, well, if you believe I can't put pure waste into the stream, but I also am a manufacturer and I can't put zero waste, somewhere in between is where I can live as a manufacturer and the stream can still be alive. True. Well, if you agree with me on that statement, then you agree that regulations are needed.
Yeah.
You can't say both things in the same paragraph, because then one is, and that's where I'm always like, this is not a Republican, a left, a right, a Democrat. This is not anything.
No.
This is human beings that want to ignore a mathematical principle or something that's like, if I die tomorrow, these things are still going to happen on Earth because they're physical realities.
Yep.
It's not my opinion. It's like, so that's where I don't really like to, just get me to the reality and then figure out who's doing it. And then maybe if we correct it, we correct it. If we don't, but at least we've acknowledged it and we've accepted what it is. Again, and it's not because of this or that made it real. It is real. And now we're going to spin it into some politics because that's what humans do.
Exactly.
Not the other way around. So, but yeah, wonderful. Our time has blown by. He said I could do this all day, and then
me too, dude.
But,
I love talking with you. This is so much fun, and I really appreciate you taking all this time. I think we can definitely have some more rabbit hole conversations with a lot of this, like the ethics of all of this, and how we don't need to have the politics in the ethics. It's not about it, and
I don't think it used to be. I mean, I think in the past there was like, a lot of different. America has changed. Everything always changes. It's amazing, but
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. If you have, I don't want to cut you off, but I don't also want to go on forever and ever. So
no, I think this is great. This is a good, like almost 2 hours, a beautiful episode. And so let's talk really quick. So just so the listeners can hear, who aren't watching the video. So everybody can go to hashingtoheating.com. It's hashing2heating.com. And you guys can also go follow Jon at Twitter at hashingtoheating. Also, those are the two. Is there anywhere else that they should follow you, or those are your two main places?
Those are the two main. I do like goofing around on Instagram just to have it for the heck of it, but it's not a thing. Yeah.
Totally. It's great. And then also, so for you guys listening too, go follow Jon, because are you going to post a bunch of stuff about the Pleb Minor month and all the things that are happening with that?
Yes, for sure. I'll definitely, be retweeting. There's going to be a little podcast with me and this other gentleman named Moses, who's amazing in this space, doing so many different things. So we're going to do some podcasts, and Jon will be releasing things, Jon D. Giacomo, and I'll be sharing them.
Cool. Like tag me and all that stuff, and I'll repost things too. And if you guys want to do a spaces, it sounds like you probably have all this under control, but if you do want to do any kind of spaces, I'd be happy to help co-host or share messages, whatever you guys want to do.
It'd be great. It'd be great to get you in the mix. Well, you're officially a Pleb Minor now.
Yay! I'm going to be a Pleb Minor.
So let me know. Well, yeah, shoot me stuff offline, whatever it is, however you want to coordinate. I got a couple S9s sitting back there. Those guys have them, whether it's the guys in Colorado, because I think you're in Colorado, right? So there's tons of good guys there if they want to set you up, but we can all work together. They could, Rob built that sound box on his back patio.
Oh, cool. Okay, cool. I'll Yeah, I'll talk to him about that this weekend. And yeah, that's going to be great. Oh, I'm so excited, Jon. Thanks. And congratulations. Like, you're kicking ass. And I really applaud you at putting all of these resources together for everybody on your website and, you know, sharing this with the world. I mean, that's the nature of this world of Bitcoiners. You know, it's like we keep wanting to just help each other out and get the message out and share and share and share. And it really is this, it's my heart, because it's such a collaborative mindset.
It's the new age that we didn't know we were going to get, or something. It's kind of like, right? Isn't that the you don't get the burn you want, you get the burn you need?
I was just going to say, like, it's about Burning Man too. It's like everybody does their own things, but we're still out there together, like co-creating this yumminess. It's not competitive. Like, that's not my experience ever. It's always
can't be anymore, because things have to move so quickly. And like, it was like complete realization. Of course, we were like, well, there's got to be, you know, dozens or hundreds of these companies. There's got to be hundreds of guys talking to the local HVAC guys. There's got to be one in every city, because we have, you know, we've got to do the methane thing next year, not 12 years from now. So
yeah, exactly.
No real competition, because we're all just like, yes, 10 more people. Let's get more people. Do it.
Totally. I mean, because there's so many problems that these things solve, and we do need more of us on the ground helping to solve them together. You know, tomorrow night, I think I sent you a thing. Yeah. We're going to be doing Burning Fiat Man. We're going to do a live stream at 6 Mountain, like 5 o'clock Pacific time. We're going to have, you know, there'll be a couple people over here, and we're going to have some fun, play some music, but you know, we want to be on the playa too. We're still there in spirit. And I feel like the magic of the playa brings us together. I mean, obviously you and I are kindred spirits because of that, as well as Jerry and Bobby and the gang, the boys. So yeah.
How do you feel about the people? Like, well, it's fine. It doesn't matter how we feel. It's going to happen. But it's like, now you see, like, everybody's posting all these photos, like, straight from, and they're out there, and I guess they got signal, or they've got a lot more signal now than they ever, you know, it's fine. But
how do I feel about it? I think
I got to see a picture while it's going on. I don't know.
You know, as somebody who gets to see a picture, sure, I'm happy to see a picture, but at the same time, I always think of that as like, it pulls you out of the moment too, you know, by like, oh, I got to go post, I got to go do the thing, and you know, all of that. And so that's my old school mind, you know.
If you're there as a media person and you're Scott London or whatever, then that's fine, because that's your game. That's what you're there for.
Yeah. But I'm there for being around other people and art. So yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. You guys you guys can follow me at DJ Valerie B Love, and go to djvaleriebelove.com for show notes. Go to fountain.fm, and you guys can go stream some sats to your favorite content creators. And those guys are rocking it over there at Fountain. But most importantly, go follow Jon at Hashing to Heating on Twitter and hashingtoheating.com. And thank you so much, Jon. I really appreciate your time. Mwah. Blessings, and we'll talk offline. All right, everybody. Peace, love, and warm aloha. This is DJ Valerie B Love with Bitcoin, Peace, and Music. Woohoo! Yay!